It's time now for the award-winning #1 local talk show in Northeast Pennsylvania, The Sam Lesante Show. Now here's your host, Sam Lesante.
Thanks for joining us, folks. I'm Sam Lesante. Hope you're staying well. The election's coming up June 2nd, and we don't have the opportunity of going out and listening to people debating and having these public forums because of the coronavirus quarantine. So we need to find out what's happening with who's who. John Leshko is here today, folks, and he's the former mayor of Middleport. And John has a unique background, and he wants to be a state representative in the 123rd District. So, John, thanks for coming on the Sam Lesante Show.
Well, Sam, thanks for the opportunity to come out and speak. I think you said it best that we started this campaign by knocking on doors, and you really get to know what matters to people when you can speak to them. But with this virus, we haven't been able to get out and knock on doors.
So that's, now more than ever, not that I'm plugging the means of television, but the means of television, local television programming is important. When you're running for office, I'm a firm believer, if you've seen any of my shows, and I'm going on 3,900 shows, I always believe in the substance of the person, okay? Because that's who you're really entrusting your life with, okay? For example, look what we have in the state of Pennsylvania today, and how one person is controlling many lives, okay? Millions of lives, okay?
Yes.
So it's important to put people in office who have a substance, and I don't care whether you're a Democrat or Republican. In this case, John, tell us about your background.
So from my background, politically, if you will, I was and have served my community of Middleport as mayor for multiple terms. And in that opportunity to serve my neighbors, you learn what matters to them and you learn what's important to them. And for us in a small town, it was about being safe, bringing law enforcement to Middleport. So Middleport had no police department when I started as mayor, and members of the council really wanted a police department. So we said, how do we do this? How do we make it happen? And we were able to partner with the township next to us, Schuylkill Township. They were offering police services. And we said, how do we take those police services and we can contribute to the fund? We can give our portion of money and we'll expand your police services. So it wasn't just about us taking from that community. We actually, by us joining with that community, we were able to raise their services. So their level of service went up, and then they were able to partner with us. In fact, I just received a letter from the chief of police out there last week, and it was a letter of recommendation. He said, when John said he was going to run for office, I said, wow, that's great, and here's my experience of working with John. And
see, that's important.
I think so too. I think when you have those relationships, those real world experiences of serving your community, I think it goes a long way.
In terms of recommendations and endorsements, sometimes people take that lightly. I don't, because if I'm a member of any organization or me myself endorse someone, that's telling people if they respect me or respect who's endorsing the person, tells a lot. How big is Middleport?
Middleport's a small little town. It's about 500 people. Yeah. And my family's 6 of those 500. So.
Yeah. But they have the same needs and wants as people who are in 5,000, 50,000.
Well, they sure. But I think the challenge is, and I think it's a great challenge to learn, especially going to the state, is you have to do it on a budget, right? So a very small town of 500 people is as hard. It has, as you said, the same needs as any other town, but when you have a bigger tax base, it's a little easier to service those needs. So when you're in a really small town, it's about that finite dollar that you have, and you really got to stretch that dollar. In Harrisburg, it needs to be put on a diet when it comes to a budget.
The funny part about small towns, I was born and raised in a small town called Pardeesville. Very proud to say that I was born there. Fabulous people. People that were hardworking people. I played with the Slovaks, the Polish, there was no race problem whatsoever. And you find that these people that work hard in their lives and have substance, they're not going to be fooled by politics. Politicians think they're fooling them, but they're not. It's when you take a little town like Middleport, the people are wholesome, they work hard, they're they mean the best for their families. Am I correct in saying
Oh, it's
that?
absolutely right. I think everybody in that town knows each other. We look out for each other. We take care of each other. We know each other's children. My wife and I got married in the chapel right in Middleport. It's part of our church, and unfortunately, it's had to close since then. But we still walk past it every day, and there's still a Polish Catholic church on that one end of town, and there's a good old Byzantine Catholic church up on the top of the hill, and that's my family's Byzantine. So we do worship at a Roman Catholic church now. But you're absolutely right. It's the breadbasket of Schuylkill County. It's good, wholesome people.
And they're just, they don't pretend what they are not.
Nope.
They are just people that. So being the mayor there, you said there's a part here that says you were dealing with corruption.
Yes.
What was that story about?
So it had to do with a small volunteer fire company, and if anyone is a volunteer firefighter, thank you for your service. It is a thankless job, and you put your life on the line every single day. But a lot of the small fire companies struggle to stay active and have enough members and raise money. And we had some members in the fire company, boards of trustee members who, money was disappearing. You drive by and you see those boot drives and you think, I'm going to give $1 or $5 or, I'm going to give money to help support the volunteer fire company. And that money started to disappear. So we did an audit and we found out that, it really came down to 2 people that could have done it. And we partnered with the solicitor from the borough and said, hey, we need to do something about that, because the fire company was chartered as part of the borough. So it's the borough's responsibility. And as the mayor, you have to make those decisions and you have to get involved when the time comes. And it's not something you want to do. It's not a conversation you want to have. It's not a story you want to hear, especially about a volunteer fire company. But when the time comes, you have to do what's right and you have to remove those people and get them out of there. And that's exactly what we did.
You did. In terms of, you have here retail management, 14 years of experience working at a Fortune 500 company. What is?
Correct. I've worked for the last 14 years for the Bed Bath & Beyond Corporation. They're headquartered in Union, New Jersey. They own a number of companies. One of the Christmas tree shops up in Montage Mountain, and there's a Christmas tree shops down in Allentown. I've worked for that company. I've worked at the Bed Bath & Beyond in Wilkes-Barre and Reading. Yeah, the Christmas tree shops are fun stores.
Yeah, they're fun stores.
So right now I'm currently employed as a project manager, working on a project for Bed Bath & Beyond for their next generation stores. And basically it's what my career in retail has been, and it's change. How do we change? And I think that's what I want to take to Harrisburg, is how do we change? We can't sit around and say, well, this law or this act or this bill is great, and we pass it and we move on. We should pass it and then we have to use it. We have to work with it. We have to finesse it and make it better. Too often we're happy with the status quo. I think what's going on with the virus right now, we go, oh, everything was good to go, and it was status quo, and then boy, look at the problems that we have. Well, we need to constantly be willing to change and work to make things better.
What would you be doing now in the state of Pennsylvania with this corona crisis thing? Okay, what would be your approach? If
As
you
a
were
legislature, as part of the legislature, the first thing we have to do is we have to look at the power that the governor has, right? So the governor has the power to declare a state of emergency. The state of emergency is good for up to 90 days. Well, things change very quickly. So is 90 days the right number? We should start looking at that, right? So is it 30 days or 45 days? Maybe something a little more compressed. And I think, I will say this, the governor did the right thing by making a decision. But a good leader, again, goes back and changes. You make a quick decision because you have to for the safety of people. But you have to be able to react to that decision and change it as things change and move things forward. So we have to control the power that the governor has. One person should not have that much power. That's number one. That's the first thing that we have to take a look at.
Sitting as if you were a state representative right now, do you think, when you look at this entire thing, do you think that there's politics being played now with this coronavirus situation?
It's hard not to, Sam. I think when, my job with Bed Bath & Beyond, I've been able to travel all over the country, from Seattle, Washington, down to Florida, and up to Massachusetts and beyond. And people always say, where are you from? And I always say, well, I'm from, Northeast Pennsylvania. Okay. Well, how would you put Schuylkill County in with Philadelphia, right? The hardest hit counties in Pennsylvania, and Schuylkill County is put in with Philadelphia in those counties. And then you look back at the last election, if you want to talk about politics, you look at the 2016 election, and Donald Trump handedly took Schuylkill County by double-digit margins in a county that probably should not, or typically would not, should have, yes, but typically would not have gone that way. And, I think there could be some retaliation in there. And I think there are people playing politics.
And I admire you for saying, even if it was the other way around, I admire anyone who has the guts enough to say what it is. And people today don't want to face that. Excuse me. Some people don't want to face it. I think more and more people, like those people that are in Middleport and Partysville, and people that are go and work hard for a living and try to say, they're the silent majority.
Yes.
They're not stupid. Okay, sometimes they think they're stupid. Okay, they're not stupid by no means. I take those people any day over some of the
hardworking, everyday people.
Yeah, and they see this. So, being a state representative, how would you approach that?
So, I think I've said this since we've started this. I believe that the government's job is to provide a level playing field, transparency and a level playing field. So how do you do that? You take care of the people in these small towns that own the small businesses. Small businesses is what drives the economy in Pennsylvania. It's what drives the economy in Schuylkill County. And talking about the government and legislation, when you look at the virus and you look at what the governor has done as far as waivers, 16 car dealerships out of 2,000 in the state of Pennsylvania got a waiver. Why only 16? And what was the theory behind the 16? There was a salon and a hairstylist in Dauphin County, Pennsylvania, who got a waiver, but every other barber and every other salon in the state of Pennsylvania has been closed down. So who's playing politics with everybody's money, everybody's business? If you're going to play politics with someone's livelihood, it should be criminal. I'm sorry. If you're going to play politics with someone's life or livelihood, it should be criminal.
You have here, which I've been saying for a zillion years, business success is measured typically by your return on investment. Government should be measured on efficiency.
Correct.
Hallelujah. I mean, hallelujah. This is something that people just don't look at, John. You have these people who are staunch Republicans, staunch Democrats, and, vote straight Democrats, which is complete nonsense. Here we go. You got to look for the person who is qualified. They are affecting your lives. Look what we have now in the state of Pennsylvania. Whoever voted for this person has to suffer, or
we all have to suffer.
Have to suffer the consequences because you voted for this. Now, is he good in some areas? Yes. I mean, I'm not sitting as the governor, but from what I'm hearing from all people who are in the legislature, you hear all these different stories. And when you start talking about, well, it's political, like you just brought a point up, you don't think that's in the back of their mind that, that they know Trump's going to probably crush the different counties, again, because of what has happened. And then, of course, you have the liberal media who don't want you to believe that. Okay, because if you read the papers, even though things are happening, and correct me, because you'd be a state representative, how do you fight the liberal media? That's another thing, as a state representative.
As a state representative, honesty, right? I think that's what people love about Donald Trump. He's honest. He may not be polished. He may misspeak a word here or there, but he tells it like it is. And that's a businessman. That's someone, again, coming from my business background, you have to tell it like it is. It's not about sugarcoating things. It's about honesty and it's about facts. And as long as you toe the line and you speak the truth, the liberal media can do whatever they want. The truth is still the truth.
Yeah. You wonder sometimes why, when we were doing so well in the state of Pennsylvania, as Senator Argyle said, the state was doing extremely well.
Extremely well.
And all of a sudden what has happening here is, how, looking at statistics, again, I'm picturing you as a state representative, because you're running for a state representative in the 123rd district, all right? And we're looking at qualifications, and I don't care if your name was Rockefeller. I don't care if your name was Trump. Doesn't make any difference to me. Names don't mean anything. It's the substance of the person. Now, names mean something when it comes to your family. And speaking about your family, you have a quite interesting background with your dad. Tell me a little bit about you.
So I think people ask, I think the question is, what does the 123rd district mean to you? What is your investment in the 123rd district? And it's my family. It's my 97-year-old Baba who lives in Minersville.
Is that right?
In the house my dad grew up in, right? And I look at her 18 grandchildren, which I'm one. 14 of us live in Schuylkill County. So 14 of her 18 grandchildren live in Schuylkill County. 33 great-grandchildren, I believe something like 20 of them live in Schuylkill County. Most live in the 123rd district. So it's not just our roots, it's the branches that our family has built in Schuylkill County. I graduated from Minersville High School in 1997. My dad graduated from Minersville High School back in, I think, 1964. So it means a lot to me to make Schuylkill County better. And to be honest with you, Sam, I've lived in Schuylkill County over 20 years, and it hasn't improved in 20 years. My grandmother, 97 years, I've been going to that house my entire life, in the summers and on holidays. I've watched Schuylkill County slowly deteriorate, and there's no reason for it. If you look at where we're located geographically, any truck that's traveling on Interstate 81 is going right through the heart of the 123rd district. There's plenty of land, and it is the hardest working people in Pennsylvania. So there's great stock for companies that want to come there. There's great opportunities to develop the area. And again, geographically, if it's going in and out of New England or upstate New York, it's going right up 81, right through our heart.
When you're making decisions as a state representative, you have a family.
Correct.
Okay, and you have to have a conscience. Okay, so you have how many children?
I have 4 children.
4. So that means those children in their lives, in your family's lives, you have to represent them in the best honest way you possibly can.
Right.
Looking at your background, now I'm only looking at facts here, and I've spoken to you a couple of times. You have the background to prove that you can do what you want to do. Am I correct in saying that?
Oh, absolutely. I am absolutely someone who's going to persevere. And by the way, talking about my 4 children, I have 2 boys and 2 girls. They're going to be the judge of me. They will be the ones that stand in judgment of how successful I am. I'm running to make things better for them because, like I said, in my 20 years plus years of living in Schuylkill County, I've seen it deteriorate. In my entire lifetime of visiting Schuylkill County, I've seen it deteriorate. And I would like to give my children the opportunity to have a better community and a better future. And I owe it to them, and I owe it to, my cousins and their children to make 123rd a better place to live for all of us.
When you're talking about substance and you're talking about family, okay, before I get to the question as to when you get there and you be consumed with everybody else is what you do, but let me go back to some areas that you said you had 2 recent life experiences that scared you. One a reminder, the other a tragedy.
Tragedy.
A tragedy. Okay.
Yeah, so there were 2 recent life events. So one was my neighbor. He's in his 70s. He lives with his 90-some-year-old mother in the house that her father built right next to us. And it was a Saturday morning, and I was cleaning my basement, and my phone rang, and it was Walter. And I could hear distress in his voice. And he said, "John, I need you." And I ran right over to his house because that's what you do. You take care of your neighbors in Schuylkill County. And he was on his floor, and he's clutching his chest, and I dialed 911. And about half an hour, the ambulance finally arrived.
Half an hour?
Half an hour. So this is my reminder story. Half an hour for an ambulance to arrive to Middleport. 2 days later, Walter was having quadruple bypass and a valve replaced in his heart. Walter survived, thankfully, right? He's a great man. He's been a mentor to me. He's been like a second father to me or a third father to me. I've had a lot of people, great men in my life.
Know the feeling.
He's one of them. And it was a reminder. And why was it a reminder? Well, with the birth of our last child, our youngest daughter, Reese, she's 3 years old, my wife had complications. And if she was going to go into labor, she could bleed to death. My wife could, and it would harm our daughter. So we had a scheduled C-section, and I was leaving for work around 7 a.m. one morning, and my wife said, "Oh, just give me a second, I'll give you a kiss goodbye," because we're a loving family. And she went into labor, and she started to hemorrhage and bleed. This was 3 years ago, and I dialed 911, obviously. And I grew up as a Boy Scout, and I've had a lot of first aid training. So I treated for shock, I took care of my wife, and adrenaline kicked in. And I dialed 911. And again, it took over half an hour for an ambulance to come. So that was the reminder for me. And back then, I remember calling 911 back and saying, "Hey, where are you guys? My wife is bleeding to death." And I'm sure they thought I was some parent who had never experienced childbirth and was just overreacting. But when the EMTs arrived, They didn't even bother to take vitals or blood pressure or anything. They literally scooped her up, my wife, on a stretcher and off to the hospital we went. It was the scariest moment of my life, and then the experience with Walter reminded me of that experience. So, I want to bring underserved communities access, much like we did as mayor with the police department. How can we bring communities together to provide better access to public services like EMS? So that's.
Did you find out why?
We're about 9 to 10 miles away from an ambulance is where we live. So till someone can get to an ambulance, so till you dial 911 and 911 dispatches an ambulance, someone gets to the ambulance and they drive that 10 miles through traffic, through red lights, it takes about 25 minutes to half an hour.
Everybody's doing fine now, thank you?
In both scenarios, everyone is fine.
So when you're looking at state representative, and sometimes what you're saying, and I said this at another interview, a person who's running for state representative, her background proves that she can accomplish what she's saying she wants to accomplish. So what do you think you would like to do? What are some of the main areas in the state legislature, listen to me, you know what I'm trying to say. What are some of your main points?
So the number one thing that we have to get done in Harrisburg at the legislative level is we have to put a control on spending. A lot of people want to talk about taxes and taxes and taxes, but Harrisburg has a spending problem. We pass a tax to fix the roads, the gas tax, and then we allow $4 billion of the gas tax to go to other things, to the state police, pension funds, to new cruisers. $1 billion. This roads in Schuylkill County are not the best by any stretch, and $4 billion that was supposed to go to them would have gone a very long way. So we need to hold people accountable to the things we say that we're going to do. That's number one. And if we don't, they're going to continue to raise taxes year after year because they have to. And whether it's pension gaps or whether it's cost overruns, we have to hold the bureaucracy and we have to hold our elected officials accountable to doing what they're going to say they're going to do with our money. And that's first, because until we fix spending, we can't fix taxes. So we have to have taxpayer accountability acts so that the legislature can't raise our taxes over that. And we have to make sure that the money that we say is going to this or that, whether it's to relieve the debt of property taxes, help pay off school debt, whatever the money is earmarked for, we have to make sure it gets there. And then when you have departments and agencies who consistently run over their budget, well, we entrusted someone to run that agency, a bureaucrat. Well, we need to hold that bureaucrat accountable. In my job at Bed Bath & Beyond, if I ran over budget all the time, I assure you I wouldn't be there for 14 years. We hold them accountable. We have to look at our government the same way, and we as taxpayers should be looked at as we're the board of directors, right? We're the ones that should be directing what you as a legislature are doing. It's our money.
Talking to John Leshko, folks. He's running for state representative in the 123rd district. And so remember, June 2nd is the day. You're one person among many when you get to Harrisburg, if you should get to Harrisburg. So that means you're going to have to negotiate, you're going to have to talk, you're going to have to convince, you're going to have to persuade, to do what you think is best for your county and the state of Pennsylvania. It's not only the county, but the state of Pennsylvania. How good are you at that?
I'm very good at building relationships. And I think, and speaking of, we were talking earlier about when someone endorses you or you get a letter of recommendation. I have another letter of recommendation. I literally got it this morning via email, and it was from one of the vice presidents that I worked with at Bed Bath & Beyond. And it clearly shows that his point of view is, I was very good at building relations. And I was the one, when we were in a meeting and push came to shove and things got tense, I was always the voice of reason. A lot of people think that you can go into these situations and bully yourself into a solution and say, it's going to be my way or the highway. We're going to walk out of here with win-win solutions. And that's not a reality. Harrisburg is oversized. I think one of the things we can do as a legislature is shrink the size of the legislature, right? So every 10 years we do a census. Why? Because our founding fathers knew things would change. The results of the census will change the layout or the districting of Pennsylvania and maybe even cut a few representatives, because sadly people are leaving Pennsylvania because we've got a problem with taxes here and people are going to other states where we don't have that problem. But I would say or suggest that we push that number down even more, fewer and fewer members in the legislature. Why are we spending $34 million a year to run a legislature? If we went from 206 representatives down to 150, that 150, they can disagree just as much as 206, but we can save money doing it.
Speaking of working with, the state as a state legislator, you have a job.
Correct.
How are you going to be able to manage both of them?
Well, I'm going to leave my job. I've
You
made
are?
that decision. Yep.
Oh, okay.
So,
Well, that vice president's not going to be too happy now.
No, no, they're not. But someone else
You
asked
want
me
to
that.
leave a great job,
14 years.
14 years, a fabulous job,
Yes.
to run for state legislator in the 123rd district. Folks, you talk about a commitment. Now, I'm not going to say, are you crazy? Because
Some people have asked me.
Okay, only because of the fact, and I, first of all, I admire you. I admire anybody see, you're making a commitment. This is not like a side job for you, okay?
It was a tough decision.
Yeah, are you kidding me? 4 children?
Four children.
Young children? Their
3,
ages
5,
are 4
5, 7, and 9.
Okay, come on. I mean, so...
But that's why. That's where the commitment comes from, to make it better for them. So you have to make sacrifices in life. But my wife finished her master's degree, and we made the decision for her to be a stay-at-home mom.
Well, John,
So-
you certainly weren't born with a silver spoon in your mouth.
No, sir.
Okay? Looking at your background, your family worked hard. You worked hard and still are working hard to continue what you're doing, and now you want to bring that ethic, that work ethic and morality ethic, I say, to state of Pennsylvania. I applaud you for that. I really do.
Thank you.
I think it's going to be I think it's a challenge because you get, as Trump said, he's cleaning the swamp out, and as you notice, the more he's cleaning it out, people are going crazy. Pelosi's
dirtier
going
the
nuts.
water is.
They're going nuts because they know what's there, and people are not dumb.
We have the same problem in Harrisburg. I
my
say
God, yes.
we need to flush out the river because if you've been to Harrisburg, the capital's right on the Susquehanna River, and we just need to. I say tear down the Dock Street Dam and let the water pull them all down with it.
Well, John, if you're knocking at doors, which you can't right now, so right now, watching the show, they're inviting you into their homes. So now you're sitting in a person's home, one of your constituents. There's your camera there. What would you tell these people why John Leshko should be a state representative in the 123rd district?
John Leshko should be a state representative in the 123rd district because I'm here to represent. I'm here to be a public servant, and I'm not a politician. And a lot of people like to point that out, that I'm not connected, that I don't have these relationships, that I'm not beholden to special interest groups. I'm beholden to my children. I'm beholden to my neighbors, to my 97-year-old grandmother, because they're the ones that are gonna tell me when I'm doing things wrong. And it's important to me to make Schuylkill County better, and we stop backtracking in Schuylkill County. And it's time that we hold people in Harrisburg accountable to our money, the money we give them. So that's why you should put me as your representative in the 123rd district.
John, it's a challenge. And anyone who runs for office today, I applaud. I may disagree with some of their thinking as they disagree with mine.
Sure.
Okay? I have viewers of some of my good friends think that some of the things that, which I believe in, you're crazy, Sammy. But that's fine. But that's good, healthy discussion.
Sam, I say it all the time. You will know where I stand. We may not agree on everything.
Exactly.
But
yeah.
you are going to know where I stand.
Yeah.
And you should know where I stand.
Exactly. And so, but bringing that moral value, okay, and believe me, we're all sinners. There's no question about it. People say I'm not lecturing, but if you don't have a substance, if you don't have a faith, and if you feel that it's okay to rip little unborn babies' arms and legs and crush their heads, if you feel that way, this is my opinion, okay, then you have a problem, okay? How these people could do that, and how, from what I understand, the governor is allowing people to pick up people who want abortions. Okay,
the governor is politicizing abortions. We are definitely a pro-life family.
What about the substance of that person? Okay, and then he's worried about COVID.
If you want to talk about the substance of the governor, there was a bill that recently was vetoed by the governor that would have expanded telemedicine. Telemedicine is the opportunity to get on a video conference. We all see Google and Zoom,
Yeah.
right? And you can talk to a doctor and they can prescribe you medicine, right? And in Schuylkill County, where we live, that's great for people who don't have access to medicine. He vetoed it because it didn't include drugs for abortions. Drugs, the FDA says, you need to meet a doctor in person, not over the phone.
Folks, John Leshko is running for state representative, the 123rd District. Vote with your conscience. We'll see you next time.